I'm Sally Leidy.
I'm Connie Nichols.
I'm Jean Tennant.
Well, there were four of us. The ones you've seen, Sally, Connie, and Jean, and Jane Vincenti. And we were members of the Race Relations Committee of the Kennett Friends meeting. And we decided that we would like to try to help children who needed help in school, primarily high school.
Primarily helping people make their way in the world who didn't get a very good start, shall we say.
We thought we might need some help, and so we went to Bob Scott, who was principal at different times of the 3 elementary schools in Kennett. And Bob said if you waited until the children were in beyond elementary school, there was just no point in trying to help them.
We knew that there was a daycare center up in Westchester, and we all went up there to view it. And we thought it was a very good way for us to go.
I remember 2 things at the beginning. One, looking for a building, and the other, you calling the right person in Harrisburg so that we could get on the track of a daycare center. And then, so that was sort of where we took off.
Well, we started off with all volunteers.
Yes, huge number.
But the officials in Harrisburg were appalled at this idea that we would have volunteers making lunches and all. So they sent down this woman from the health department, and she tried to set us straight.
We didn't like her much, but we did what we could to do what she asked, and then sort of went our own way anyway.
Oh, by the way, we had found the building.
Yeah.
That was enormous.
It was the TikTok bar, but it was spelled T-I-C-T-O-C. And one of the women who was one of our early Martha Kinsey, said, if you're going to have a building where children are learning, you've got to spell TikTok right. So it was changed to T-I-C-K-T-O-C-K.
I couldn't help remembering when we first went into the place, and it was the TikTok bar, and it had been unused for quite a while.
Yeah.
We had 2 gentlemen come in and look at the children sleeping, taking their naps, and they said, "Are they all dead?" They were disappointed because they couldn't get a drink.
And I think that the next biggest thing we did, right about the time that we got this woman in, was have a really big meeting at Kennett Friends meeting, inviting the school superintendents, especially Kennett, when I remember Mr. Prettyman being so, of course it was Bob Scott to begin with, and ministers of the churches. It was a broad, it filled them, it was a lot of people. So a lot of people were in on it really from the beginning,
And
as volunteers. I remember one thing that is just the daily feel when you took your passenger in. I also had my little tiny fellow who was like one and a half or something, and I just remember the excitement then of pulling up. I mean, first of all, finding the child you're going to bring,
which wasn't easy.
It was almost always in a mushroom house development, and then my little child and that child, and then getting there and all the people going back and forth. It was hustle and bustle and excitement, and a big shock to go last week and have to ring the bell. That was a real switch. I remember bringing a benefactor there once, Mrs. Farquhar.
Oh, yeah.
Who, they were really helpful with money, and she really wanted to go. And she was as tall as Connie, if not tall. She was a tall, stately woman. And she had to sit down in this little tiny chair. And I remember her doing that with grace. And then a board meeting where we were all in our little chairs, and we never had anything but those little chairs, and we were all sitting around in a circle. And we had to make a decision as to whether to keep on renting the TikTok or buy the TikTok. And the way we did it was we did something that on occasion has happened in Friends meeting, which is you just go around the circle and each person says where they're coming from in turn, so that no one's dominating. Everybody's thinking through where are they with that, and we came out yes, we can do it, and we will buy it.
Well, we bought it from Ben Reynolds, and he'd been very generous in renting to us, and he was also very generous in selling it to us. Well, one of the things we did to raise money, and there were a lot of them, was to silkscreen Christmas cards. And Connie Nichols had the Bayard Taylor house in Cedarcroft, which was a wonderful old house. And they were slowly renovating it at that time, she and Bill. And so while we were there with our own children, because we didn't have any place to put them, we took them with us. And we would be in one room with Connie directing us how to silkscreen the Christmas cards, which was always very hard for me because I'm not good with anything like that. And in another room, our children would be tearing off the wallpaper from the walls because Connie said that's what she needed done so that she could then silkscreen wallpaper for the walls another time. So that I just can see those children working and having a wonderful time, and us working and turning out Christmas cards. And we did Christmas cards for probably 4 or 5 years, would you say? It was a nice long time.
And Sally was really the idea behind those fabulous dinner parties. We used to have great dances too. Big time dances.
Yeah.
Connie, you don't know this, but I talked to Leona Salzer yesterday, who was originally one of our volunteers, and she told me when I called her that she turned right away into the social director, I think it was her name.
Social worker.
Because this lady, whom she remembered from Harrisburg, told us that we could not start a daycare center unless we had a social worker. And so we hired her. She turned from volunteer to hire, and she worked for $10 a week. And she stayed with the daycare center forever.
A long time.
A long time.
And when we started out, we had a director, Manitha Murphy, and an assistant director, Theola Moses, and then we had volunteer cooks, volunteer teachers, volunteer drivers, because a lot of the children otherwise would not have been able to come to us. We didn't go get them, so we did, and that was something that Harrisburg said could never work, and we kept right at it.
And Sally directed it. I mean, you were the one that...
I was in charge of volunteers, and at 7:30 in the morning the phone would ring and somebody would say, I can't drive today, or I can't cook, or I can't teach. And so then I would go down my list and try to find somebody who could do it. I suspect somewhere between 75 and 100 names for volunteers. So there were a lot of people who came forth and said yes, they could drive one day a week or every other week or whatever.
But the volunteerism didn't last for very long in that we couldn't have volunteers except for drivers.
Except for drivers, yeah. Right.
I don't know how long. Do you remember? I don't remember how long that lasted.
Anna Lee was one of the early people from who came, and she was our cook for a while.
Right. Lincoln University people were right. Remember?
Yeah,
They were there.
in Worthington.
We were very fortunate that people really took to the idea so that they were willing to give us money. And I started with one round begging for money. A job which was not
What you wanted.
what did I want to say? I found my voice, which I had not had before. I found that I could speak in front of big groups, and the groups were very amenable to this idea.
Including United Fund.
Was
It was extremely important. It was certainly a far cry from what it used to be, and it took, how long? It took 40 some years to get to where it is now.
yeah.
And, you know, bit by bit,
What do you call it? Five?
high five.
Oh, high five. Oh,
We were
yes,
able
yes.
to high five these little
Several of them.
3-year-olds. It was fun, and they were having fun. The whole place was bright and happy,
Yeah.
as it should have been.
I don't think I could add much to that, except that it looked like a wonderful place for children to be. And the director, Jackie Moss, has just been an invaluable asset to TikTok and to, I think, TikTok's place in the local community. I think she's given it a name now that people know.
It was we began the thing, but other people took off and
Yeah.
turned it into what it is now. It was an enormous accomplishment.
Well, one of the major differences is that the whole place just looks extremely well run and well staffed, and you have the feeling that the children are in the best of hands. And as I think we all observed, the kids seemed so happy.
Yeah.
They weren't afraid of us. They smiled and they giggled. They thought, "Oh my goodness, look at these 3 old ladies! What fun!" But it was marvelous to see it.
Plus the size. I mean, we were 7 kids
To begin with.
to begin with. And now it's 80 or something, you know. And they had to be enlarged and enlarged to accommodate all those children. And different classes. And I don't think we had the little...
Right, the 3s went there and the 2s went there.
Yeah, they were all more or less the same group before. It's just come a tremendously long way. Initially, the focus was on the child, had nothing to do with the circumstances other than the fact that the child really needed some kind of a place. And the early children, many of them were had to be admitted through a social worker. And they were referred to us by Children's Services. And Children's Services knew of the child of the blind woman or the child of the deaf woman. And so the basis, the need was the condition of the home rather than whether or not the 2 parents were working. But Leona, this former social worker, told me that changed, had nothing to do with the daycare center staff itself. It was the state. The state made this rule. And I find that, something of a dilemma, shall we say.
I'm just really impressed with the colors of the wall.
Oh, I know. Me
The
too.
walls are all bright blue, and bright yellow, and bright pink. It looks just grand.
And all the things on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing is, it's still going, and it's still helping children, and I think from time to time there is real community support. You'll have to ask Jean about the shop, because that was certainly something that was totally done by volunteers, and everyone said that will never work either, but it did. And the community really loved the TikTok shop. I mean, if you spoke to anybody with children, that's where they wanted to go for toys, etc. We had a couple of dinner dances to raise money. We had the Christmas cards that we've spoken of, and one of the most recent ones was the Magical Mystery Dinner for about 10 years, and that brought in a fair amount of money. So the community has helped us in many different ways.
In a way, the excitement, I think, was always there, and a really dedicated staff, looks like. Certainly the same atmosphere of respect and care for the kids, and enjoying the kids. And also, in a way it's the same, but on a bigger scale, is how very involved the daycare center is with after-school kids. That has to be enormous, and extremely important.
It's wonderful that the TikTok is still going with dedicated staff and dedicated board. Hope that it's able to continue with. Jean mentioned the after-school care. There's also a thriving summer program, and Jackie Moss, the director, said how much they try to do to work with kids during the summer, not only with recreation, but also with homework, with things that they need to be involved in. So it's sort of a tutoring process that we envisioned at the beginning that's still there.
Well, I just hope the community and United Way will continue to support the center. Sally has stayed on the board the whole time.
Not the whole time, but I've
Well, except on when you're in
been around.
The thing I want to say is thanks for asking us. I mean, it was real fun to talk about it and remember, and we really appreciate your asking us.
Yeah.